Hello, learner. Welcome to Mr. Quickest Teaches. I'm Mr. Quickest. In this lesson, I'll be analyzing Gillian Clarke's poem, Lament. Now, this poem is part of 15 poems in your GCSE or IGCSE anthology. And I've analyzed all the 15 poems in the course. And you can gain access to the course for only £5 a month in a subscription, or you can buy the entirety of the course for £45 a year. Now, the course contains analysis of all the 15 poems and also predicted IGCSE or GCSE questions. So those questions can train you to check if you really understand the poem after you've listened to the analysis. Now, additionally, the course also contains sample grade 9 or A-star essays. And that's because sometimes students struggle with writing essays, even though they've listened to an analysis or they have a fair understanding of the poem. They're unable to replicate the understanding into essays. So that's this sample essay, A-star essay or grade 9 essay helps you to mimic it. So you can mimic it and see what to introduce, for example, in the introduction and the body of your essay, the conclusion, how to use conjunctions to make your essay flow, etc. So that's the usefulness of the grade 9 or A-star quality essay. And like I said, you can get access to the analysis or all the components like I've mentioned for only £5 a month in subscription, or £15 or £45, for a year. That means you get to save 3 months in subscription. Now, additionally, we also provide tuition services as well. So if you need help for the other components of the English literature, you can join our group sessions or our one-on-one sessions as well. The first lesson is a free lesson. So what that means is that you can join, observe, or see how it goes. If it's something that works for you, then you can stick and stay. If not, you can look for alternatives without any questions asked. Now, additionally, we also provide tuition services as well for other subjects. So English language, history, geography, sociology, math, the sciences. So we have other teachers who provide assistance and tuition. And what we do is that at Mr. Quickest Teaches that we grow your confidence, because in my 16 years of teaching, I realized that confidence is a key part of what a student should be able to do. If a student is confident about their ability, they're able to move sometimes 2-3 grades higher than maybe usually they would get. So we have teachers that are very experienced with past papers and everything properly streamlined to make sure that you are ready for the exam when it arrives, and then you can ace it. And if you want to reach out to me as well, you have questions, you want to reach out to me, you can just send me an email, and the email can be sent to Mr. Q at mrquickestteaches.com. Mr. Q at mrquickestteaches.com, or you can send me the email to mrquickestteaches@gmail.com, or you can even write a comment in the comments field on any of the social media handles where you find this analysis. Let's begin our analysis. Let's start by speaking about the poet Gillian Clarke. She was born in Cardiff in 1937, and then she lives in Ceredigion. She's a poet, playwright, editor, and broadcaster, lecturer, translator from Welsh. She was the editor of the Anglo-Welsh Review from 1974 to 1984. That's 10 years. She's National Poet of Wales from 2008 to 2016. She was also awarded the Queen's Gold Medal for Poetry in 2010 and the Wilfred Owen Award in 2012. She has published 10 collections of poetry for adults, reading radio and theater plays, and translated poetry and prose from Welsh. Her work is widely anthologized. That means they've put it in anthologies, and then you can see a few of the poems, the titles of some of the things that she's written down there. Now, in terms of the poem Lament, the title of the poem, like I mentioned at the opening, is Lament, and it has 7 stanzas in terms of the structure. Now, I'll talk about the form and the structure of the poem later on, right? But in terms of the structure, it's 7 stanzas, 21 lines in total. And then because he has like tacet stanzas, that's 3-line stanzas. Now, in terms of the summary of the poem, it's about this speaker who sort of laments about the condition of multiple aspects of nature, and because of man's actions, So when I was reading this poem, I just remembered a report to Wordsworth by Bo Kim Cheng. So it carries this idea, but this poem has a bit more listing of the various aspects of destruction that man has sort of caused on nature. That essentially is the summary of the poem. Now let's begin the analysis. The first thing I want us to talk about is the note on the title, right? The title is Lament, and the title Lament reveals the speaker's tone towards the topics that she raises. Also, Lament powerfully highlights her passionate expression of grief and sorrow as she lists the multiple destructive effects of man's actions on the world. Let me read the poem, Lament by Gillian Clarke. For the green turtle with her pulsing burden, in search of the breeding ground, for her eggs laid in their nest of sickness, for the cormorant in his funeral silk, the veil of iridescence on the sand, the shadow of the sea, for the ocean slap with its mortal stain, for Ahmed at the closed border, for the soldier in his uniform of fire, for the gunsmith and the armorer, the boy fusilier who joined for the company, the farmer's son in it for the music, for the hook-beaked turtles, the dugong and dolphin, the whale struck down by the missile's thunder, for the tern, the gull and the restless water, the long migrations and the slow dying, the veiled sun and the stink of anger, for the burnt earth and the sun put out, for the scald ocean and the blazing well, for vengeance and the ashes of languages. Now, the poem opens with the speaker saying that for the green turtle with a pulsing burden, which reveals the first reason why the speaker is lamenting. Remember, in terms of the tone of the poem, the key tone is lament, and that's also the title of the poem, right? Now, she's lamenting a few things. She's lamenting, first of all, the color, and then the type of animal, and then the rhythmic aliveness of the heartbeat of what it is carrying. So, for the green turtle, with its pulsing burden. So it means that the green turtle is about to, lay its eggs, and then now it's going what? In search of a breeding ground. So it shows that it is going about looking for where it would lay its eggs and allow its young to be bred. So something that in the past would have been very easy for this green turtle is becoming very difficult. And that's because of the use of the word in search. So it means that it has to go to multiple locations to be able to lay its eggs. And that's because of the pollution, possibly liquid pollution, and also liquid pollution, and also solid pollution. The waste, the literal waste, trash, and all those things that are thrown around. So that is like the trouble of it. It's searching. It's going about looking for where to lay its eggs and allow its young to be bred. Then we see the use of metaphor as well. For its eggs laid in the nest of sickness. That's an example of metaphor, nest of sickness. Now, the second lament by the speaker, in which she uses the nest of sickness as a metaphor to strikingly convey the unsuitable nature of where the green turtle laid her eggs, possibly how that could lead to their deaths. So essentially, what we see in this last line of the first stanza is that where green turtle, or the green turtle lays its eggs or her eggs, is essentially a place that would lead to the deaths of the eggs, essentially, because of the pollution that has happened. Now, in the second stanza of the poem, she mentions something else for which she's lamenting. And again, we see the use of metaphor. For the cormorant in its funeral silk. Now, this is the third lament and metaphor that provides vivid visual imagery of the cormorant bird covered in crude oil. So essentially we see here that this crude has covered the cormorant, and essentially it's wearing what the speaker describes as a funeral silk. And this is really, really telling. Now, this creates a very, very disturbing image, because I remember a few years ago, 2010, when there was some explosion in the Gulf of Mexico, and we could see crude oil being spilled directly into the ocean. And you could see cormorants and birds, for example, being covered in crude oil. And I think it is this image that the poetic voice here describes as a funeral silk. Essentially, She's trying to say that it's just a matter of time before the cormorant dies off. So here we see another effect of man's action on birds. The pollution that man has caused on birds, on the environment. Now, cormorants, fern, gull, water are all types of seabirds. Then we see another metaphor as well. The veil is a second metaphor. So a veil is a covering used by the speaker that tells that the spilled crude oil is covering. So it's like a covering, a veil. You know how a veil sort of covers somebody. Here, this crude oil is like a veil that has covered the birds. While of iridescence on the sand tells that it has formed a lustrous rainbow-like play of colors because of the oil slick. So the oil slick on the ground, when you look at it, has this iridescent quality. That means a surface of shimmering colors. So it tells you again how powerfully the disastrous nature of man's effect on another aspect of nature, the sand, where people would go to the beach, where people would go and hang out. It has destroyed it. Then we also again see another metaphor. In fact, Clarke uses multiple metaphors in this poem. He says the shadow of the sea. So this is a third metaphor employed by the speaker, which strikingly provides vivid visual imagery of the dark crude oil as a layer and an inseparable alter ego to the sea. So essentially, in this set line, what we see is that the speaker is telling us that the crude oil that is spilled has essentially become a shadow. And a shadow is something that has become a part of somebody. So essentially, the sea, which is supposed to be pure and clean, has a shadow. And what is the shadow? Crude oil. So again, we see this death, this imagery of death and darkness being used here to vividly express the danger that pollution, in this instance, crude oil pollution, is having on the environment. Now, in terms of the themes of the poem, we see the negative effects of human actions on nature. That's one of the key themes. Then we also see another important theme, liquid, solid, and gas pollution. So essentially, the poet talks about all of these. Then we see the theme of migration, land and sea pollution, war, death in war. We see the theme of climate change and global warming. We also see the theme of extinction of languages, among other themes. Now, in terms of the point of view of the poem is recounted in the third person point of view. Now, I say that because it appears that the speaker is just telling us about what is happening. The different destructive actions that man is carrying and how destructive it is to the world and how people live in it. Now, in terms of the tone of the poem is elegiac. That means, it means that it's like an elegy or like a dirge. Weepy. People are, she's weepy, she's lamenting. And then towards the end of the poem, I hear this tone of resignation. It's like she's resigned and realizes that she cannot improve the situation. So that is the tone of the poem. So we see sorrow, sadness, even in terms of the tone. It's elegiac, like a dirge, and then toward the end of it, it's like she's resigned and says, well, man has already caused irreparable damage. Now, in terms of the form and structure of the poem, which is very, very important, I tell my students that you have to write about the form and structure of a poem. If you're looking to get either an A star or a grade 9 or grade 8 or even an A. Now, the poem is a free verse poem. That means that the poem does not have a rhyme scheme. It has 21 lines in total, but then it is broken into 7 tacet or 3-line stanzas. So that makes the poem appear very organized on the page. Now, each stanza also has 1, 2, or 3 sentences. So if you observe, stanza 1, for example, has 2 sentences. So the first 2 lines is 1 sentence, and then the line 3 is another sentence. Then if you look at stanza 3, for example, it has 3 sentences. So line 1 is a sentence, line 2 is a sentence, line 3 is also a sentence. And I think the speaker does it because she's juggling multiple ideas. She's talking about the destruction of nature. She's talking about migration. She's talking about war and the death that happens in war. She's talking about all other actions, negative actions that man carries out as he destroys the world. Now, additionally, we also see the use of anaphora and then repetition as well. So the speaker employs anaphora and repetition multiple times in the poem, which is seen in the opening of multiple lines with for there or for and then there and there. So which powerfully creates the impression that she has an inexhaustible list of things that she's lamenting about. There are countless things that she's lamenting about. So that's about the form and then structure of the poem. Now, if you also observe in the in the poem, there is no enjambment, which is quite strange, right? So because we see that every line either ends with a full stop or a comma. So there you have it. Gillian Clarke's Lament has been made simple. Like I mentioned, this analysis is part of a course in which I've analyzed all the 15 poems in your GCSE or IGCSE or anthology. The course contains all the analysis of all 15 poems like I've mentioned, and also predicted GCSE or IGCSE questions that are going to be really useful to check your understanding of each of the poems. Now, additionally, the poem also contains sample A-star or grade 9 essays that you can mimic and look at what to include, for example, in your introduction, in your body, in your conclusion, how to use conjunctions, among other useful tips from the essays. Now, additionally, at Mr. Quakers Teaches, we also provide tuition services as well. So if you need help, in the other components of the English literature, like the prose, the drama, and the unseen, or even the poetry, which this analysis is part of, you can either join our group sessions or our one-on-one sessions. Now, additionally, we provide tuition services as well for the other subjects, like English language, history, geography, sociology, math, the sciences. We have a league of teachers that are very good at improving your confidence, taking you through past papers and making you understand how to answer questions. Now, the thing is that the first lesson is a trial lesson. Essentially, that means that it's free. So you can join the lesson. If you enjoy the lesson and you want to, continue, you can book for maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or as many lessons as you want in the week. Additionally, if you want to reach me directly, so you have questions, you want to reach me directly, you can send an email to me, and you can send it to Mr. Q at mrquakersteaches.com. That is Mr. Q at mrquakersteaches.com, or you can send it to mrquakersteaches at gmail.com. Now, additionally, you can leave a comment in any of the social media handles where you see this analysis, and then I'll reach out to you and then see how we can help you. Now, the link for the subscription, yearly subscription, monthly subscription, signing up for the tuition services and all of that is in the link. So you can click on it and then you can go there directly. So thank you for joining the lesson. Until the next time we meet. Bye-bye from me.